Speedway Report is a production of ZTV. Well, Bobby Labonte hopped in an asphalt modified for the very first time. The Hall of Famer hit the open wheel ranks. And I think Common Core math made up the distance of the South Carolina 400 this weekend. And Thanksgiving weekend has some racing, but gosh, not nearly as stuffed as it used to be. We've got all this and more coming up. Welcome to Speedway Report for Monday, November the 23rd, Thanksgiving week 2020. From the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina, I'm Patrick Reynolds, and thank you for joining the fastest half hour in racing. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel yet? Yes, Speedway Report has a YouTube channel. All of these shows are archived there and can drop right into your mailbox. I'm going a little casual tonight. Got a little scruff going. Yeah, well, didn't even shave. Got a t-shirt working here. Got my superhero t-shirt on. It's holiday week. We're relaxing. I got a little, casual thing going. Hey, Paul. Good to see you with us tonight. Thanks for chiming in and saying hello. Paul McKeever here every single week. Great supporter of Speedway Report. Met him at Bowman Gray Stadium several years ago through Kevin Rice. So, Paul, thanks for being such a big fan and supporter of Speedway Report. Good to have you along for the ride tonight. Let's hit up the Speedway Report Victory Lane lap. Yes, there was stuff going on. It's mid-November. We're still racing in spite of all the cancellations. That's going to be a topic tonight. The USAC Midgets were out in California last week, a combination event with the Western States cars. They ran a double header on Friday night. Thomas Messerall won your A main, while Tanner Thorson was the big feature winner on Saturday night. The Southern Modified Auto Racing Series, the rebirthed, the Phoenix Rose Smart, it's back. They were part of the South Carolina 400 weekend in Timminsville, South Carolina, the home of Cale Yarborough, and the Florence Motor Speedway. Brian Lofton won the 75-lap pavement modified race. The late model stock car 225, part of the same event, won by Ty Majeski. Would you believe that this is Majeski's first ever win in a late model stock car? Guy's got tons of wins on the super late model side, has been in the National Touring Series of NASCAR, never has won a late model stock car race. First for him, and he picked a big one down in South Carolina. Up in the Northeast, the Dirt Modifieds took to the Gobbler at Georgetown, Delaware, being held at Accord, New York for several years in the past. On Thanksgiving weekend, now we're in Delaware. Now we're a week ahead of Thanksgiving, and Stuart Friesen is in Victory Lane. And closer to our Speedway Report studios here in Charlotte, the Blue Gray 100 was held in Gaffney, South Carolina. Brandon Overton won the $10,000 first place prize after Chris Madden suffered a flat tire with less than 10 laps to go. This was a real tire eater of a race, as most daytime dirt races are. Madden did not pit. His tires went oh so close, better than 90 laps. Couldn't make it before he shredded one. Overton pitted under a caution during the midway point, took fresh tires. It was a good investment on the tires, cashing a check for $10,000 later on. All right, we've all been through. Hey, Jan. Jan's pal of mine from Indy. She's not from Indy, but part of the crew out in Turn 1 in Indy at Bonnie's house. She's joining with us tonight. Hey, good to see you on the board tonight. Well, we talked about what are we going to talk about tonight? I want to talk about upcoming Thanksgiving weekend and how disappointing I am. However, let's back it up to Florence Motor Speedway here in Timminsville, South Carolina. This event is taking place over 2 weekends, consecutive weekend, and it's the South Carolina 400. Much like it's taking the place of the Myrtle Beach 400, was a big late model stock car, modified, some support class racing at Myrtle Beach Speedway. Myrtle Beach Speedway is gone, sadly to say, bulldozed earlier this year. Grandstand's gone, being turned into more retail, yada, yada, yada. Typical racetracks, typical of short track racing. Short track racetracks, when the property becomes too valuable as it's close to commercial property. So Florence, nice enough to pick up the slack, and now they have consecutive weekends, somewhat mirroring the big Myrtle Beach 400 race. In Myrtle Beach, or in Florence Motor Speedway. I'm having trouble with the math on this thing. I never could figure out where we're getting 400 from. 400 watts. 400 likes on Facebook? Because it's not 400 laps. It's not 400 miles. But you total up the, I'm looking at the math here. We got a 225 lap late model race. We got a 75 lap modified race. We ran another late model race. None of it totals up. The 2 weekends, a Saturday and a Sunday, or a Friday and Saturday, I could not slice this any such way. I couldn't do it at Myrtle Beach Speedway too. This was a Myrtle Beach 400 for years. Yet when you totaled up the laps or the distance, nothing equaled 400. I wish they'd change the name of the darn race, or at least make the laps match, or find some logic to this, but we blindly walk by this year after year. The Myrtle Beach 400 just never made any sense. I love the race and the show, but I didn't think it was that much to ask to just make the laps total up, The Daytona 518 or the Indianapolis 473. It's all the same thing, right? No, they're 500s, and they make sense, and most races are. I just haven't figured this one out. From Florence Motor Speedway to Myrtle Beach Speedway, I'm happy they're having the race. It's a big race for these guys. It just doesn't seem like that hard of a project to call a race the Myrtle Beach 400 or the South Carolina 400 and just have the laps add up. I just am boggled by this. I didn't get it then. I don't get it now. I don't see why that's so hard, especially when you're trying to sell short track racing to someone that might have a checkbook and yet a 5th grade math education or above, and it just doesn't fall into his plate and going, why would I sponsor this? It just seems to be something very rudimentary missing from the short track racing world, something like this. Bobby Labonte, NASCAR Hall of Famer, found his way into the pavement modifieds, my favorite class. The tour type cars. The Smart Series was down with 75 laps as part of the South Carolina 400. Yeah. Anyway, to the racing action itself, Bobby Labonte set a new track record, put that thing on the pole. That's fantastic. You see these modified guys, the Cup guys, come down to the modifieds in the past, and if they don't have any experience in the open wheel cars, not all of them take to duck to water, take to those type of cars right away. Labonte does not have that. He's a fendered guy, doesn't really have any experience in these. Still did a great job, turned track record, pole position for the modified race in the top 5. Very good. That's fantastic. Those cars are tough to drive when you don't have any experience in them. So we got a Hall of Famer showing up, former champion, Gibbs winner. Loved it. Loved Bobby Labonte being in a modified. I hope he comes back. It'd be good to have him in more and more pavement modified racing. Coming up, as we're doing the show live on Monday evening, what are we? November 23rd live, if you're watching us live. And if you got a podcast, you got some frame of reference. We're several days away, however, 3 days away in the trusty calendar from Thanksgiving, which is November 26th. In some areas of the country, this used to be, one of the kind of sacred holidays you didn't mess with and you didn't race with. Then when I was growing up, Wall Stadium up in Wall, New Jersey had a big race for the modifieds of 150 laps. I heard of the Turkey Night Grand Prix for USAC. Whoa, Thanksgiving's turned kind of a racing holiday, not across the nation like Labor Day or Independence Day, but it was developing its own flavor. I remember, the World Crown 300, 1983, I believe. We're pulling it out of my memory banks here. Down in Jefferson, Georgia, that big 50,000 to win race was over Thanksgiving weekend. Dick Trickle won that. It was Gary Ballou on the pole, the $5,000 Skoll pole, 50,000 to win the race. Dick Trickle won it. We had Bobby Allison in it and Darrell Waltrip in it, who just duked it out for the Cup Championship. I think Neil Bonnet was in it, David Pearson, Rusty Wallace, legendary late model guys. This took place over Thanksgiving weekend. So we had some of these major tent poles popping up. And over years, I mentioned the Gobbler for the dirt modifieds came along. Southern National Speedway here in North Carolina has an annual Thanksgiving Classic. And it looked like, several weeks ago, we were going to have big Thanksgiving weekend with lots of race results. We're down to one, folks. One is happening over the weekend that I can find, and it's nowhere near American soil. Formula One will be in Bahrain this coming Thanksgiving weekend, which is good in itself, much like the perspective of the South Carolina race that I talked about earlier. But everything else, the plug got pulled on them, all in relation to the pandemic and COVID. The Turkey Derby up in Wall Stadium in New Jersey, that was ready to go until about Thursday or Friday of last week. They had a practice session 2 weeks ago. Schedule was set. Pits were going to open. Boom, boom, boom. They had everything done. New Jersey governor steps in, shuts them down essentially with his order. Here in North Carolina, Southern National Speedway has grown their Thanksgiving Classic race for super late models, late model stock cars, their support classes into another 3-day spectacular. That was canceled. That's not going to happen. Back in September or October, something like that, USAC announced the Turkey Night Grand Prix for the midgets was not going to happen. All these fantastic short track races, plug got pulled. We're just not going to have them over Thanksgiving weekend. However, fortunately on the tube, there's some racing to watch because my interest in the NFL is below zero. I'd much rather watch racing any day of the week anyway. But we do have some Formula One stuff that will be happening in Bahrain, so we can tune into that this coming Sunday morning. Qualifying will be Saturday morning. Probably you can catch some practice online on Friday. So it gives a little glimpse of hope. Thanksgiving weekend to me, me, I'm a racer. I don't really care about football. It doesn't mean football to me in Thanksgiving. But when we can find some racing on the tube or some short track racing we can go to, which has been built up over the past several years, I'm so heartbroken that Thanksgiving weekend just cannot hold that together this year. I understand it. I get it. I'm just going to complain about it. That's one of the joys of having a radio show about auto racing, is I've got a platform to bitch and moan about things I don't like about the sport. All the racing being canceled for Thanksgiving. But I hope all of you get together and love your family and love your friends over turkey this coming Thursday. Something to be happy about. In the IndyCar ranks for 2021, Tony Kanaan is coming back. And a nice little shoehorn, little crevice for him to slide in there. He is going to run for the Ganassi team on the ovals, which are the races that Jimmie Johnson will not run, which brings up the obvious question that we're going to get to here in a moment. Jimmie is scheduled, the road course races on the 2021 IndyCar schedule. The street circuits, natural terrain road courses, he's in for there. He was not planning on doing any oval races. This is a great opportunity for Tony Kanaan to do them. I wish Tony would do another year of full IndyCar racing some way, somehow. This past year with COVID, he didn't say goodbye to the fans properly. It's like our next birthday. None of us age a year because 2020, well, it really doesn't count. You can't tack on another year. We didn't live this past year. That's ridiculous. However, I'm digging it where Kanaan's coming back. I hope he comes back. I'd love to see him run one more full season when we get fans back so he can do this right, end his career in IndyCar on the right note. But Kanaan will run the ovals, so we jump in the IndyCar world. What's the first thing everybody goes to is the Indy 500 in your mind. So Kanaan will be in Ganassi's car for the Indy 500. I have to really wonder, with Jimmie Johnson running the road course races, when we finally open up the gates at Indy, is Jimmie really and truly going to sit on the sidelines for the oval track race? Once he gets on the road course there and runs the IndyCar Grand Prix in early May over Mother's Day weekend, you're at the Speedway, you're at the month of May. Is there no way possible that Jimmie says, hey, I got to run me some Indy 500, and steps somehow, some way, he steps up to the plate with a sponsor or somebody else does, or Chip Ganassi. I don't know how this is going to work out, but for some reason, I just can't see Jimmie Johnson and that brutal, competitive, driving nature of his, how he attacked NASCAR for his entire career. Now we're looking at the IndyCar circuit, and the Indy 500 comes along, and Jimmie says, I'm not there. I'm not going to do it. I could see it saying it now, on paper, to make it all happen, when it really comes, when it really happens, how is Jimmie Johnson just going to step aside and not be part of the Indianapolis 500? Wouldn't Indycar and the Speedway, Roger Penske for certain, want Jimmie in a car for the 500? Got to be. Yes, we want Tony Kanaan back. We want TK and JJ on the grid of 33 next May. I do. Don't you? All of you that want it, raise your hand. That's what I thought. Everybody wants to see that. There's got to be some way that Jimmie does this. I know what we're all saying. I know what the contracts are. I know what the sponsorship is. I know what it all says. I know it's on paper. Yada, 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 yada. Jimmie Johnson, I just foresee it, and this is just my gut, that he will run the Indy 500 somehow next year. He's got to. He should. But cheers to Tony Kanaan coming back to the IndyCar world. I have, as I said, no football interest at all for Thanksgiving weekend. I always had, in NASCAR's peak years, when it was still on the rise and still immensely popular, I always had a vision that they should run their championship race on Thanksgiving evening. I don't think you could do that now, but with the juggernaut that it used to be, this was before we had an 8 p.m. NFL game. We had the 12:30 game with the Lions. You had the 4 o'clock game with the Cowboys, and that used to be your NFL football doubleheader. I wanted, in the early 2000s, my idea, when NBC had the second half of the NASCAR package, was to put the final race at Daytona on Thanksgiving night and have that on NBC Thursday evening. Ho, ho, ho. You were talking a ratings juggernaut, as Thursday or Thanksgiving evening is one of the highest rated television watching nights of the entire calendar year. NASCAR, when they could have gotten away with this in about 2002 or 3, 4, around then, man, that would have been something before the stupid playoffs got here and we actually ran a race. I wanted to, shift the schedule around, here's my vision of the perfect Cup schedule: is every track gets one race, no track gets 2 races, except Daytona. Why? Because it's Daytona. And we bookend the season there. We run the Daytona 500 in February. We bookend it with the Thanksgiving night Pepsi 400, Coke Zero, Firecracker 400. That's what we do with that. That would have been, and the championship is started and finished at Daytona. That was always my vision. That was my dream. And then you'd have less races in the year. The guys would have more, a little bit more time off as far as team members. Or you could run the schedule full throttle and then have a several-week break before you set up for the finale at Daytona on Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving night. Much like you have a 2-week break between the end of the conference championships and the Super Bowl, we could have a several-week break to build up this championship. But alas, it is not to be. Just an old dream and fantasy I have that if I was running the show down there in Daytona, this is how it would go. And how it still should go. I'd love 24 hours in the Daytona Beach offices as king for the day. I'd fix this sport. Let's see. I wanted to pick out the date here, November 23rd. Today is the birthday of one of the Canadian legends of short track racing, stock car racing champion Jean-Paul Cabana. How many remember J.P. Cabana from the Busch North days? A legend out of Canada, out of Quebec, a Frenchman. Cabana, his birthday today. And rest in peace from a few years ago. Also a birthday for Ronnie Bouchard. Would have been in his 70s today, 72, 3, 4, something like that. I can't quite remember. Shame on me. I should. I was a big Bouchard fan. But gosh, rest in peace, Ronnie. I was a big fan of his in the modifieds and in the Cup Series. I followed his whole career. When he retired from driving, I missed him tremendously. I was a Bouchard fan. Like the guy, fantastic. Would have been his birthday today. Rest in peace, Ronnie. And just as a public service announcement for all you guys, often I'm in a nice shirt or jacket and tie or suit or shirt and tie or a Speedway Report logo. I went with a superhero t-shirt tonight because I'm comfortable. It's 2020. We have not hit Thanksgiving yet, but if you want to listen to Christmas music, if you want to watch Hallmark movies, if you want to put up your Christmas lights, do it. If it makes you feel good, if it makes you smile, we all need that this year. Don't worry about hitting Thanksgiving as the unofficial. You got to clear that before Christmas. Usually I'm there. However, this year, everybody not racing related, just put up your lights. Put up your tree. If it makes you happy, enjoy it. I think of pick any band. Pick any band in the world. Say you're a Bon Jovi fan. Who is to tell you that you can only listen to Bon Jovi 1 month a year? That's crazy. If you like Bon Jovi, you're going to put him in and listen anytime. If you like Christmas music, put it on the stereo and crank it up in your car or in your house. Enjoy as we head into Thanksgiving 2020. Nothing racing related, just something I needed to get off my chest. And I am going to honor Dave Despade in Motor Week Illustrated with our Speedway Report Racer of the Week. I'm going to give it to a very successful short track racer, but when he stepped into the late model stock car race in South Carolina, got his first ever win in that type of discipline of cars. There's a bigger difference in a late model stock car and a super late model than you think. He did a hell of a job. He worked his tail off to get the win. Ty Majeski is our Speedway Report Racer of the Week. Now, everybody, you can tune into SpeedwayReport.com for all of our archived shows and some good articles to read. I've had several columns over time. Rhonda Beck is there as well with local short track racing. SpeedwayReport.com. Hit me up on social media on Facebook, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds or Racers Reunion. On Twitter, I'm at Speedway Report and at Speedway Pat. I told you about the YouTube channels and racersreunion.com. We are archived in the forum. Big thanks to everybody on the chat for tuning in tonight. It's over here, stage left to me. I'll get in chat with you guys shortly. I want to thank all the military past and present for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans in our daily life, including the simple things like bench racing right here on a Monday night. Freedom is not free, and a veteran paid that bill for us. To all of the men and women who are defending freedom and watching Speedway Report, you take care of yourselves and come home soon. A special salute to the teachers, school staff, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics in our own communities. They are quiet and modest heroes every single day. God bless and thank you. You've been watching Speedway Report from the shores of Lake Norman in Race City, USA, Mooresville, North Carolina. Please like our Facebook page, Speedway Report with Patrick Reynolds, and you can follow me on Twitter at SpeedwayPat. On the Drag Racing List Facebook page is Drag List Live coming up at the top of the hour in about 7 minutes. Bill Wilson and John Bockelman got you covered with the straight liners. I'll be back live here on Facebook. Yes, right after Thanksgiving. It will be Monday. It will be November 30th. We're going to talk about that Formula One race from Bahrain, and I hope somebody holds a rebellion race somewhere where we all get together and just race. Go for it, guys. I want to thank you all for watching. You take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Have a very happy Thanksgiving this week. I'll see you all next week.